Her daughter hadn't spoken to her in 3 years, until she bought a beachfront duplex. Now Brooke stood on the porch with a suitcase and a forced smile. "Just a weekend," she said, "to reset." By Monday, the locks were changed, the trust updated, and the door never reopened. Marla Jennings had begged for love once. Now she handed out silence, with legal proof behind it. "All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from." The phone buzzed once, a vibration against the old pinewood table. Short, unassuming. Marla didn't look at it immediately. She was halfway through tying a new ribbon around the porch wind chimes, a ritual she'd started each season since moving to the Outer Banks. The soft clang of shell against metal drifted through the open screen door behind her. Breezy, mellow, unbothered. When she finally reached for the phone, the glow of the screen cut through the morning calm like a blade. "Brooke, heard you bought a beach place. Any chance it's free this weekend?" "No, hi. No, hope you're well." Just a question from the woman who hadn't spoken to her since the day she declared, through clenched teeth and locked eyes, "You're dead to me." Marla stared at the text for 12 long seconds, not in disbelief, but in calculation. Then, without sigh or frown, she flipped the phone face down. She walked out to the porch, where salt and light met wood and silence. The breeze off the ocean was steady today, threading through the dune grass like a familiar hand. Her rocking chair creaked gently as she sat. No cushion, no rush. A seagull called overhead, arrogant and sharp, then vanished behind the cloud line. Marla watched the horizon for a moment before closing her eyes. A knock on the screen door came soft, deliberate. "Brought you something," Adele called out, her voice as warm as the sun-warmed granola in her hands. Marla turned. "Let me guess, coconut and almonds?" "And dried cherries," Adele beamed, stepping out barefoot onto the porch. "Because they're tart enough to wake the soul." Marla chuckled and took the jar. "That's one way to avoid talking about daughters." Adele didn't ask. She never had to. Her friendship was stitched in observation, not interrogation. Instead, she sat on the porch rail and glanced toward the dunes. "You look like someone just got invited to a party they didn't ask to attend." Marla unscrewed the lid, plucked a single almond, and chewed slowly. "She texted." Adele went still. "Brooke?" "Well," Adele said carefully, "that's something. She wants to know if the place is free this weekend." Adele didn't flinch. "So not a reunion, just a reservation." Marla's laugh was quiet, brittle. "She thinks I'm still the woman who begged to be invited, who waited on doorsteps just to be tolerated. She doesn't know about the new locks?" Marla looked at the screen door behind them. "She doesn't know about any of it." Adele leaned back, letting the wind tug her curls sideways. "Then she's in for a hell of a stay." They sat for a moment, the two of them framed by salt air and unspoken history. "Are you going to answer?" Adele finally asked. Marla reached for her phone, flipped it face up, and opened the message. Her fingers hovered over the keys for a beat. Then she typed slowly, each word an anchor. "Come if you like. Just know, I'm not who I was." She hit send, set the phone on the armrest, and picked up the jar of granola again. Adele grinned. "That's gonna hit her like a riptide." Marla tilted her head toward the sea. "She might want the keys now, but I hold the house." The SUV turned the corner slow, like it was unsure if it belonged on this street. The tires crunched over the gravel drive with an uneven rhythm that carried all the weight of the past 3 years. Marla stood behind the sheer curtain of the front window, watching without blinking. No music played from the car, just engine noise and seagulls calling overhead, loud and unbothered. The car came to a stop, the engine cut. The first door to open was the rear passenger side. Riley stepped out, lanky and wide-eyed, her sneakers sinking into the sand-dusted pebbles. She looked taller than Marla remembered, more teenager than child. A striped canvas backpack hung off one shoulder. She paused, turned in a slow circle, and took in the house. The salt air blew her hair sideways. She didn't seem to mind. Then the driver's side door opened. Brooke stepped out in dark sunglasses and a crisp blouse that didn't fit the coast. No smile. Her lips were tight, posture rigid, the kind of stiffness Marla remembered from courtroom dramas, not vacations. She didn't look at the porch. She looked through it. Marla opened the screen door and stepped onto the top stair. No fanfare, no welcome mat words to lean on. Brooke looked up, lips pressed into civility. "Thanks for letting us stay," she said, voice clipped, as if she were checking in at a rental she didn't really want to pay for. Marla nodded. "You're here, that's all?" No hug, no arms open, just the breeze threading through the space between them like a line neither wanted to cross. Riley hesitated a beat, then started toward the house with a quiet, "Hi, Grandma." Her voice held no tension, just curiosity. Marla offered a small smile, held the door, and said, "You're taller than the last time I saw you." Riley shrugged, the faintest grin forming. "Puberty." Brooke walked up behind her, shoes clicking too sharply against the porch wood. "Which one's our unit?" Marla stepped aside, gesturing without ceremony. "Downstairs. It has its own entry, full bath, and a separate kitchen." Brooke peered past her like she was scanning for missed flaws. "How's the Wi-Fi?" "Reliable," Marla said. "Like ownership should be." Brooke didn't react, or maybe she did, but so subtly it was swallowed by her oversized sunglasses. Riley followed Marla in for a moment as Brooke went to retrieve their bags. The front room was washed in soft afternoon light, the kind that made even the plainest things look cherished. Marla had left a bowl of seashells on the sideboard and a folded quilt on the couch, not a gesture, a habit. Riley's eyes swept the space. She touched the edge of a photo frame. Marla on the beach, hair wild, laughing mid-turn. No one else in the photo. "You live here, all by yourself?" Marla gave a quiet nod. "And all by choice." Outside, the sound of a trunk slamming shut echoed like punctuation. Brooke reappeared, dragging a suitcase toward the lower unit door. Riley lingered a moment longer, then turned to follow her. Before she stepped out, she paused, one hand on the screen door handle. "Grandma?" Marla turned, eyebrows raised slightly. Riley looked up at her, blinking against the light. Her voice was softer this time, almost unsure. "Is this all yours?" The sound of Riley's question still echoed faintly in the hallway as Marla stepped aside to let her walk through. "Yes," Marla had replied, simply, and it hung in the air longer than expected, like a held breath. They moved slowly through the house. Not quite a tour, more like reconnaissance. Brooke walked with her arms crossed, gaze sweeping the crown molding, the polished oak floors, the clean lines of the built-in shelving. She didn't say much, but her eyes were cataloging, assessing. Marla noticed. Of course she did. "This is the upstairs," Marla said, gesturing lightly to the open kitchen with the sea blue tile backsplash she installed herself after 3 YouTube tutorials and 1 minor breakdown. "I live here." Brooke tilted her head slightly, eyes settling on the quiet elegance of the space, how everything matched without trying too hard. White linen curtains, framed black and white photos of the beach, a vintage record player resting near the bookshelf. Nothing about the space was accidental, but none of it was for show. "It's coastal," Brooke said finally. "Cute." Riley moved toward a shadow box near the hallway, filled with pale pink shells, rough black coral, and a few handwritten stanzas mounted on parchment paper. "Did you write these?" she asked, eyes scanning the poems. "I did," Marla said, "and I collected those shells after storms. The best ones wash up after a little chaos." Riley smiled at that, just slightly. "They're really pretty." Marla leaned down, tapped the glass gently. "They are. And no one had to gift them to me. That's the best part." Brooke wandered into the small sunroom, then turned and called, "So the guest space is totally separate?" "Yes," Marla replied. "Own entrance, kitchenette, even a washer and dryer. Total privacy." Brooke raised a brow. "Smart setup." "I like separation," Marla said. "These days, I prioritize it." Before Brooke could respond, the doorbell buzzed. A short, familiar chime. Marla didn't even glance toward the peephole before opening it. Adele stood on the porch with her usual sunny presence and a canvas tote slung over one shoulder. "Thought you might need these?" she said, holding out a stack of rolled beach towels in vibrant blues and oranges. "We're in for a dry spell, and guests always underestimate sand." Marla smiled. "You're a miracle." "I know." Adele winked. Then, catching a glimpse inside, she added, "Ah, you got company, huh?" Brooke was standing behind Marla now, arms crossed, offering a nod that was far from welcoming. A flicker of judgment flared in her eyes, the kind that said, "You already told people I was coming?" Marla didn't flinch. "Just helping each other stay comfortable." "Nice house," Adele added to Brooke, giving her a once-over. Brooke didn't return the sentiment. "Thanks for these," Marla said, taking the towels. "Come by for coffee later?" "Wouldn't miss it." After Adele left, Brooke moved toward the kitchen island. "You've got quite the village here," she said. "I have neighbors," Marla said plainly. "The village thing never worked out for me." Brooke blinked, lips twitching, like she wanted to fire something back but couldn't quite shape it into a sentence. Marla's phone rang from the console table near the door. She checked the screen. Jake Kessler. She excused herself and stepped out onto the back porch to take the call. "Hey, Marla," Jake said, breezy as ever. "Quick heads up, your daughter reached out this morning." Marla went still. "She said she was family and wanted info on the property value, asked if you were looking to list or add a co-owner." Marla didn't respond immediately. The ocean breeze shifted, stirring the chimes above her head. "I figured you should know," Jake added, voice quieter now. "She's staying in the guest suite," Marla said, voice flat. Jake exhaled. "Didn't realize it was complicated." "It's layered," Marla replied. "Thanks for the call." She ended it, stood still for a long moment, and watched the tide roll in. The sun was beginning its slow descent, casting long amber streaks across the porch railings and warming the wood beneath Marla's bare feet. Brooke sat across from her at the small bistro table, legs crossed neatly, sunglasses off for once. Her manicured nails tapped the side of the glass Marla had handed her, fresh lemonade with mint, the kind Brooke used to sip as a child but never thanked her for. They hadn't spoken much since the call from Jake. Marla had made no mention of it. She preferred silence with substance over conversation that circled the drain. Brooke took a slow sip and then, as if complimenting the weather, said, "This place would do really well as a co-owned property." Marla didn't blink. "It already does well as a fully owned one." Brooke chuckled, light and casual, like they were old friends teasing over brunch. "Sure, but imagine the tax advantages if it were split. Dual names, shared expenses." Marla stirred her tea, not looking up. "I've already imagined it. Then I bought it myself." A beat passed. Brooke tried again, her voice softer now. "I could help. With taxes, upkeep, that kind of thing. You'd keep it, obviously. I'd just be on paper. Strategic, really." Marla set her spoon down. "Are you offering out of guilt or greed?" Brooke's posture stiffened. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," Marla said, finally looking her in the eye. "Is this to fix what you broke, or just to secure something you didn't earn?" Brooke leaned back, glass clinking too hard on the table. "I thought you'd be grateful we visited at all." Marla smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "You're confusing visitation with validation." The silence that followed was not comfortable. It was a vacuum. Brooke's jaw shifted slightly, like she was biting back something sharper. Her eyes scanned the porch as if searching for witnesses, but it was just the two of them, and the tide, humming its indifference in the background. "Look," Brooke said, gathering her bag from the side of the chair. "I was just trying to be practical." "So was I," Marla replied, standing slowly, "when I bought this place without telling anyone." They stood there in the fading light, mother and daughter, generations apart, not just in years, but in language. Brooke opened her mouth again, but nothing came. She turned and stepped off the porch with clipped steps, heels clicking down the path toward the guest unit. Marla sat back down, her tea now cold but untouched. She let the quiet stretch, long and full. A knock came, soft and hesitant, on the screen door. Riley. She peeked her head in, eyes thoughtful. "Grandma?" Marla turned. "Yes? Can I stay upstairs with you tonight?" The brass doorknob rattled, twice, followed by a sharp knock. Then came Brooke's voice, clipped and rising. "It's locked?" Marla didn't glance up from the puzzle she was piecing together at the kitchen table. The sky outside was a deepening coral, and the upstairs unit smelled faintly of lemon oil and sea salt from the open windows. "Yes," she said plainly, fingers fitting another corner into place. "It's locked." Down the short hallway, Brooke stood in front of the upstairs door like it owed her something. She was barefoot now, her hair pulled into a haphazard ponytail, but the tension in her shoulders could have cracked glass. "You'd keep your own daughter locked out?" Marla turned a piece over, calm. "You have the lower unit. It's quite nice." Brooke stepped forward into the living space. "That's not the point, it's me. You can't just lock me out of your life like—" Marla's voice cut in, low but precise. "You locked me out 3 years ago, Brooke, with words I still hear in my sleep." The wind through the window stilled, as if nature too had paused to listen. Brooke's jaw clenched. "So what, this is payback? You're being petty." Marla looked up then, and her eyes, clear, steady, unfazed, held Brooke still like a current beneath a calm sea. "It's not pettiness," she said. "It's privacy." Brooke scoffed, spun on her heel, and stomped toward the staircase. The door slammed behind her like a period. That night, the house breathed quietly. The lower floor hummed with faint TV sounds, while upstairs Marla turned the last piece of the puzzle and lit the small table lamp Riley had admired earlier. The knock on the front door came just after 9. It was Adele, in her usual fleece zip-up and carrying a plastic tub of cinnamon scones. "She was pacing," Adele said, nodding toward the driveway, "out near the mailbox. Circles, looked like she was trying to talk herself into something." Marla thanked her, took a scone, and invited her in. Adele declined with a shrug and a smirk. "Figured you might want the heads up." When Marla returned inside, she found Riley curled on the couch with one of her old books, The Shell Seekers, pages dog-eared in all the right places. Marla sat beside her and brushed a strand of hair off Riley's cheek. "Good story?" Riley looked up, eyes soft. "You're strong." It landed heavier than Marla expected. "Thank you," she said, barely above a whisper. They sat like that a while, the ticking clock the only noise. When Riley yawned, Marla tucked her in on the pull-out couch, handing her a clean quilt with a faint smell of lavender. Downstairs, a suitcase zipped. In the morning, before the kettle even whistled, Marla heard the door downstairs swing open hard, Brooke's voice, sharp as slate. "Riley, let's go. We're leaving." Riley emerged upstairs, blinking, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "We are?" Brooke didn't answer. Marla waited on the top step, tea mug in hand, not following, not interfering. She watched from the window as Brooke shoved the trunk closed with her hip, eyes darting toward the house like it had betrayed her. Then her phone buzzed on the side table. A text from Jake. "Jake, thought you should know. Brooke called last week asking about Duplex comps. Sounded desperate. You okay?" Marla stared at the screen for a long moment. Her tea was still warm, but it no longer tasted the same. The SUV didn't roar out of the driveway. It slinked. Gravel cracked beneath the tires like brittle bones. Brooke didn't glance back. Not when she tossed her overnight bag into the trunk. Not when Riley waved from the passenger seat window. Marla stood just inside the screen door, barefoot, mug in hand, steam curling past her cheek. There was no hug, no thanks, just the wind returning once the taillights vanished. The quiet afterward wasn't peaceful. It was clinical. Empty. She rinsed out Riley's teacup, folded the borrowed quilt, smoothed the indent in the couch cushion. By lunch, the house looked untouched again. But something lingered, like the faint scent of Brooke's perfume in the hallway. Something unwanted. That evening, as the sky burned orange and the ocean softened to a lullaby hum, her phone buzzed. "Brooke, heard you've got equity there. Actually thinking of buying nearby. You know a good lender?" Marla didn't answer. Not right away. She stood, walked to the edge of the porch, and leaned against the wooden rail, the salt air brushing her face like a memory she didn't ask for. The message wasn't about real estate, it was about territory, presence, control. 2 hours later, another message arrived. This one from Jake. Jake. Weird call earlier. Brooke asked what you paid for the place, said she might want something comparable. Sounded tense. You okay? Marla typed a reply but deleted it. Instead, she turned on the porch light, walked inside, and sliced a nectarine. The sweetness filled the room like defiance. The next knock came from Adele. You got that look again, Adele said, stepping inside without waiting to be asked. She held a small woven basket filled with fresh rosemary and a bottle of olive oil. The one that means someone tried to walk across your dignity in shoes. Marla smiled faintly. She texted, wants lender referrals. Adele's laugh was more of a bark. She's not done, not yet. Marla nodded. I know. They stood in silence for a while. The clock ticked like it had secrets. Later that night, well after the moon had replaced the sun, another message came, this time from Riley. Riley, I liked it there. I like you. Marla's chest ached in a way that had nothing to do with heartbreak. It was something older, something hopeful, like a bloom pushing through dry earth. Marla, you're welcome anytime. Just you. She turned off the lamp, letting darkness wrap around her like a quilt. Outside, waves folded and unfolded over each other, a rhythm she trusted more than most people. The next morning, she rose early and walked the length of the beach with bare feet and no agenda. The tide left shards of shells, scattered like reminders that beauty can come from broken things. When she returned home, the red light on her landline was blinking, a voicemail from the title office. Hi, Ms. Jennings. Just wanted to let you know the documents are ready for pickup. Also, someone else stopped by this morning. Said she was family. Brooke Jennings? Marla lowered the phone slowly. Her eyes didn't move from the blinking red light. The lobby air smelled like printer toner and eucalyptus hand sanitizer. Marla adjusted the straps of her leather bag and stepped up to the counter of the title office with a quiet confidence that came from surviving storms far worse than paperwork. Hi there, I'm here to sign for the final easement documentation on Lot 5C, she said, her tone easy, precise. The receptionist tapped the keyboard. Jennings? Yes, Marla. Behind her, the glass door whooshed open. Marla felt the chill before she turned. Stilettos on linoleum. A perfume she remembered from long, awkward brunches, musky and expensive like a cover story. Brooke, hair curled, blazer sharp, sunglasses perched on top of her head like she owned the coastline. Oh, what a coincidence, Brooke said, voice silky, insincere. I had some questions about coastal permits. Marla didn't blink. The tide brings in more than seashells, I suppose. Brooke smiled tightly. You've always been good with metaphors. And you've always preferred loopholes. They stood face to face now, separated by 3 feet and 30 years of buried resentment. Brooke leaned an elbow on the counter like she was networking. So, hypothetically, if we were ever to co-own a property, would the title require a joint survivorship clause or— Not happening, Marla said, loud enough for the receptionist to glance up. No co-owners, no exceptions. Brooke's lashes fluttered. I'm just trying to be practical. You always said I should think ahead. You're thinking behind, way behind. Brooke stepped closer. Her voice dropped. You're still punishing me. Marla didn't flinch. I'm finally rewarding myself. The silence stretched like a rip current. Brooke backed off, her heels clicking as she turned to the brochure rack. Her hand hovered over a pamphlet about 1,031 exchanges. Marla signed her forms and slid them back across the counter. Thank you, she said crisply, then added, and I suggest locking this folder. Not everything should be shared. She didn't look back as she left. The glass door shut with a soft hiss, erasing the sound of Brooke's presence like a wave smoothing over footprints. By the time she reached her car, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Jennings? It was Erica, her attorney. Your daughter reached out this morning. She asked if your trust is irrevocable. Marla let out a quiet laugh. And what did you say? I said it is, and that we're reviewing protections just in case. Would you like to schedule a formal update? Marla looked through her windshield, out at the vast stretch of blue horizon beyond the strip mall. Her voice was calm. Yes, I want to make a change. That evening, Adele sat across from her at the kitchen table as Marla marked legal forms with a thin black pen. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters like someone trying to get in. She was fishing, wasn't she? Adele asked. More like baiting, Marla replied, initialing page 6. Do you think she'll try to push it? She already is, but she's forgotten something important. Adele raised a brow. What's that? I'm no longer reachable through guilt. Marla slid the folder into an envelope and sealed it with one firm press. The sound echoed in the quiet room like a verdict. A photo of Riley, taken the day they walked the shoreline last spring, sat framed near the bookshelf. The girl's hair was wind-tossed, her smile soft and unsure, still learning which adults she could trust. Marla's gaze lingered on it for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I'm making sure the right person inherits peace. The ink felt heavier than usual. Marla's signature didn't tremble, but it settled into the page like a weight dropping into still water. Across the mahogany table, Erica reviewed the final page. Her red pen hovered only a moment before landing a sharp check mark. That's it. Trust amended. The entire property, structure, land, and residual rights passes to Riley Jennings, unencumbered. No room for challenge. Marla exhaled, soft but long. Make sure it stays airtight. Erica nodded. I added a conditional clause. Brooke has no legal standing to override this or claim posthumous rights, even under duress or appeal. Good, Marla said. She'll try something. I'd rather build the dam before the flood. The office smelled faintly of paper, lavender oil, and high-stakes decisions. Outside the window, the marsh grass leaned east under a strong ocean wind. Marla watched it, steady. Anything else you'd like to include? Erica asked. Marla reached into her purse and pulled out a folded brochure. Marine Life Preservation, Outer Banks Initiative. She slid it forward. I'd like 10% of my remaining estate to go to that foundation. Riley loves sea turtles. I want her to inherit something living. Erica smiled and nodded. Consider it done. Back home, Marla placed the notarized documents into her fireproof lockbox. With deliberate care, she closed the lid and turned the dial slowly, as if sealing a vault of intention. Later that evening, as gulls wheeled against a coral sky, her phone buzzed. Riley, spring break's coming. Could I maybe come back down? Just me. No pressure, just asking. Marla's hand rested on the arm of the porch chair for a moment before she replied. Marla, you're welcome here always. Just you. I need that boundary. The reply came a minute later. Riley, I understand. I'll talk to Mom. I won't bring drama. I just want quiet and sand and you. Marla let the words wash over her. Not perfect, but honest. She could feel the girl navigating the tangle of her own loyalties, trying to find a center that didn't cut her in half. Quiet and sand and you. That was more than she'd been offered in years. The following morning, Marla stepped into the guest unit to freshen up the space. Clean sheets, new lavender soap, a folded beach towel on the dresser. The air inside smelled like lemon polish and fresh paint. She left a note on the pillow. Ocean's still here. So am I. By noon, a delivery van pulled into the driveway. A young man in a blue polo stepped out with a glossy white basket wrapped in cellophane and satin ribbon. Delivery for a Marla Jennings, he said, from a Brooke Jennings. Marla stared at the basket. White wine, brie, crackers she was allergic to, a tiny scented candle labeled Forgiveness Fig. There was no card, just a small wooden sign tied to the handle that read, For the woman who always had a flair for drama. Adele came over later and stood beside Marla as she stared down at it on the porch. "She really knows how to weaponize aesthetics," Adele muttered. Marla picked up the candle, sniffed it once, and wrinkled her nose. "Figure?" Of course. They said revenge was loud, but Marla knew better. Real reclamation was silent, filed in a legal office, protected with pages, not performances. She handed Adele the basket. "Drop this at the women's shelter. Someone else might find warmth in it. I won't." The ribbon was velvet, deep green, almost smug. Marla held the tag between two fingers like it might sting. For the woman who finally got what she wanted. She stared at the basket's contents spread across the kitchen island: fig jam, which she'd always hated, scented bath salts that triggered her migraines, a tea blend she was allergic to, and at the very center a faux marble plaque engraved in gold cursive: "Be careful what you wish for." Adele whistled low, arms crossed. "That's not a gift," she muttered. "That's a message in disguise." Marla's voice was soft but firm. "It's bait, and I'm not biting." She packed the items back into the basket slowly, deliberately, then tied the ribbon back into a perfect bow. The click of the front door echoed as she stepped outside, the wind whipping strands of gray hair against her cheek. The sky was pale and cloudless, the kind that made everything look too clean, too exposed. At the downtown women's center, Marla handed the basket to the receptionist and smiled. "Not quite my taste, but maybe someone else can make use of it." The woman looked at her, confused but grateful. "Thank you, ma'am. That's kind of you." Marla nodded. Kindness is free, so's clarity. She walked back into the sunlight, her shadow long against the pavement. By the time she returned home, Adele had a tablet open on the porch. "You're not gonna like this," she said, tilting the screen toward Marla. A new social media post from Brooke, a photo of a coastal sunset, Marla's exact beach in the background, with the caption, "Watching a loved one slip away mentally is like losing them twice. Memory fades, anger doesn't. Sharing complicated grief and aging parent support." A second post underneath: "Just because someone signs a deed doesn't mean they understand it. Inheritance nightmare. Protect our seniors." Marla didn't blink. "She's not posting for me. She's posting for an audience." Adele scowled. "She's throwing gasoline and daring you to light the match." Later that evening, Marla sat at her kitchen table and opened a new notebook. She dated the first page, then wrote in sharp black ink, June 3rd, social media post suggesting mental decline. June 3rd, implied discrediting of legal decisions. She flipped the page. June 4th, gift basket with loaded message. Across the room, the ocean breeze drifted through the open window, brushing the edge of the curtains like a slow reminder. Her pen scratched against the paper like a needle carving into vinyl. The sound was meditative. She pulled out her phone and opened her email. 2. Erica Barnes. Subject: Documentation Protocol. "Hi Erica. Per our last conversation, I'm logging all future interactions, direct and indirect. We'll keep records of social posts, mail, text messages, and any claims that suggest incapacity. If she escalates, I'll be ready. Best, Marla." Her phone buzzed just as she hit send. Riley. She hesitated a beat, then opened the text. "Mom said, you're not feeling well. Are you okay?" The words hit harder than the basket, not because they hurt, but because they were careful, polite, measured, like Riley had been coached to tiptoe. Marla stared at the message, heart thudding. Her thumb hovered above the keyboard. She thought of the framed photo on her shelf, Riley holding a sea turtle plush, wind in her hair, joy in her eyes. She thought of the basket, the posts, the plaque, the story Brooke was trying to tell. Then she typed slowly, "I'm healthy. I'm steady. And I'm always here when you want truth instead of noise." A pause. Then a second message. "If you ever wonder what's real, come see me. I'll show you." She set the phone down. The waves crashed against the sand like applause from an invisible jury. The waiting room smelled like citrus and laminate, a sharp kind of sterile. Marla sat upright in a navy sweater, hands folded calmly in her lap, watching the clock like it owed her something. Dr. Stiles, the neuropsychologist, opened the door with a clipboard and a reassuring smile. "Ready when you are, Ms. Jennings." "I've been ready," Marla said, rising with the quiet elegance of someone who'd had enough of being doubted. The exam took nearly 2 hours. Verbal recall, visual memory, executive function, spatial reasoning, even mood evaluations. Dr. Stiles asked her to spell world backwards, asked about presidents and proverbs and picture patterns. He tried to slip a question in sideways about anxiety. She saw it coming. "I'm not afraid of losing control," she said gently. "I'm afraid of being mischaracterized. Big difference." When it was over, she stood, shook his hand and said, "Be thorough. They won't believe it unless it's signed in blue ink." He chuckled softly. "You're sharper than half the attorneys I assess. Maybe more." That afternoon, Erica filed the report into the estate documents. Bound, sealed, time-stamped. "A preemptive strike," she said over the phone. "If she tries to claim mental incompetence, this shields everything." "Good," Marla said. "Let her swing. I've built walls." By Friday, spring break had begun, and Riley stepped off the bus with a duffel bag and a camera slung over her shoulder. Her face broke into a real smile as she saw Marla waiting by the dunes, wind tugging her sweater sideways. "I brought your favorite," Riley said, pulling out lemon scones wrapped in parchment. "Adele said you hate fig." Marla laughed, genuine, unscripted. "That woman's a vault." They spent the week quietly. Mornings on the beach, afternoons photographing tide pools and shadows on driftwood. Marla showed Riley how to frame without cropping too soon. "Let the story breathe before you box it," she said. On Wednesday, they sat at the kitchen table printing images for a local conservation newsletter. Riley brushed her fingers over a photo of dunes backlit in gold. "You don't seem crazy," she said softly. Marla looked at her without flinching. "Because I'm not. But it only takes one rumor to make someone doubt what's right in front of them." Riley nodded, lips pressed into a line. "Mom talks like you're confused, like you forget things." Marla set down her mug. "People want to claim you after they discard you. Don't let them write your ending for you." That night, Marla gave Riley a journal. Hardback, no lines, pale blue cover. "For your version," she said. "No one else's." Riley opened it slowly. "Can I stay up here again tonight?" "You never have to ask." By the end of the week, there was sand in the entryway, lemon zest in the air, and a stillness in the house that felt earned. Riley hugged her grandmother long and tight before boarding the return bus. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me be just me." Marla stood on the porch until the bus disappeared down the coastal road. The mailbox creaked open the next day with a soft metal sigh. Inside was a letter, thick envelope, legal header. Marla opened it calmly, slicing the seal with her thumbnail. Brooks' lawyer, a formal inquiry into the legality of the trust update, veiled in legalese, but it boiled down to one thing. Was Marla Jennings, age 67, of sound enough mind to revise her estate? She folded the letter with the same care she had used to pack away old baby clothes 3 years ago. Then she picked up her phone. "Erica," she said. "It started." The breeze off the Atlantic slapped sharp and salty against Marla's cheek as she walked back from the post office, legal envelope tucked under one arm. The wind always knew how to carry away what wasn't meant to stay. Inside the house, the envelope lay flat on the kitchen table while she dialed Erica. "I received it," she said without greeting. "I already drafted the response," Erica replied. "Your trust is airtight, your evaluations are current, and your cognitive assessment is on file. She has no legal ground." Marla stared at the beige walls she'd painted herself, the exact shade of wet seashells. "Then let's give her silence." In print, Erica submitted the formal reply 2 hours later, terse, definitive, and ending with the line, "All actions taken by Ms. Jennings fall within her legal rights as trustee and property owner." By Thursday, Brooks' lawyer quietly withdrew the inquiry. No apology, no follow-up, just a vanished threat, like footprints at low tide. That same afternoon, Marla sat down at her dining table, pen in hand, trust documents spread like a battle map. She initialed every page without pause. Riley would receive the entire duplex, and 10% of the residual estate would go directly to the Cape Lookout Marine Conservation Program, her favorite. A legacy, not a leash. She closed the binder and whispered, "Done." Later that week, Jake stopped by with fresh sand on his sneakers and a clipboard full of comps. "Outer Banks is heating up again," he said, sliding a few listings across her table. "I could get you double what you paid, maybe more, or we could find you a second one, quieter end of the island." Marla flipped through the papers, skimmed over square footage and rental projections, then set them back down. "Let someone else host the chaos." Jake gave a knowing smile and nodded. "You look good, by the way." "I feel leveled," she said, like the ground stopped shifting. He left behind a flyer she didn't pick up for days. On Sunday, Riley left to return home. She hugged Marla on the porch with a weight that defied her frame, arms tight, face pressed into her shoulder. "Text me when you get in," Marla said softly. Riley just nodded. The SUV that picked her up had a different energy than it arrived with. Quieter, less armored. As it pulled away down the gravel, Marla stood motionless, watching until it disappeared around the bend. That evening, Adele stopped by with a tin of oatmeal cookies and a look. "So," she said, brushing crumbs off her palm, "you kicked a hornet's nest and managed not to get stung. That's a rare art." Marla laughed. "I didn't swat. I waited, then stepped aside." "Well, whatever you did," Adele said, sipping tea, "feels like you cleaned the house without lifting a broom." They sat in companionable silence, ocean murmuring outside the cracked window. Marla slept soundly that night for the first time in weeks. No midnight pacing, no checking the locks twice. Morning came with seagull calls and filtered sun on the kitchen floor, and a notification, one new message, from Brooke. Marla stared at it for a long moment before opening it. Just one line. "Hope you're proud." She didn't type anything back. She didn't need to. The stillness of the room was answer enough. Marla read the message twice, then powered off her phone, placed it gently inside the kitchen drawer, and shut it with a finality that echoed louder than the surf beyond her porch. She didn't reply. She wouldn't. Instead, she opened her photo app, scrolled to the picture Riley had taken of the dunes last month, sunlight carving gold into the ridges, a heron mid-step in the frame's corner, and printed it with her new home printer, still smelling faintly of warm plastic and ink. On the back, in clean handwriting, she wrote, "This view is yours someday. Protect it." She folded it into a pale blue envelope and walked it to the mailbox herself, feeling the gravel shift beneath her sneakers and the sharp edge of wind against her cheek. As she slid the envelope inside, she didn't wish Brooke would see it or know about it. That was the point. The following Monday, Marla stepped into the women's shelter on 3rd Street with a tote bag full of composition notebooks, highlighters, and post-it flags. The director, a woman named Gina with a voice like velvet and steel, had smiled when Marla offered to mentor. "We get a lot of guests who need to hear that survival doesn't stop at leaving," she said. "It starts there." Marla's first session was quiet. 5 women, all under 30, sat in folding chairs with guarded eyes. She told them the story of buying the duplex, not in dates or numbers, but in moments. The quiet bid, the clean linens, the first morning she brewed coffee without dread. "Ownership," she said, "isn't just a deed. It's deciding what you will and won't allow inside your peace." One woman cried softly. Another asked where to get started. By week 3, Adele joined. She sat in the back at first, listening, arms crossed. Afterward, she said, "You're not just hosting healing. You're building backbone." Marla just smiled and passed her another notebook. Each session, she left feeling lighter, not gleeful, just weightless, the way things feel after you stop bracing for the next strike. The nights changed too. Her sleep became deeper, uninterrupted. No more waking at 3 a.m., replaying conversations or inventing comebacks for arguments that had already rotted. Her dreams were ordinary, planting herbs, grocery lists, Riley laughing with her toes in the ocean. One Tuesday afternoon, she opened her email to find a message from an unfamiliar name. Subject: Feature. Inquiry: Women who reclaimed everything. It was from a regional magazine, Carolina Coastline Living, asking if she'd be open to an interview for their spring issue. The editor had heard about her workshops. A former mentee had written in. The email ended, "Your story is one our readers need." Empowerment isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just irreversible. Marla stared at the screen, unsure if she wanted to be seen that way, through a public lens. Then she remembered Riley's text last month. "You looked badass," and smiled. She clicked, "Reply." "Happy to talk, but I won't sugarcoat." She hit send, then poured a cup of mint tea and sat by the window as the sun sank over the water, staining the sky coral and flame. No messages, no noise, just the rhythm of wind, and a future that no longer needed defending. The magazine arrived in a plain envelope, as if it were just another piece of mail. No warning, no fanfare. Marla sliced the seal with a letter opener and pulled it out slowly. Coastal Carolina Living, the May edition. Her fingers trembled slightly, not with nerves but with the weight of what was finally hers. Page 14 held her face. She sat on her porch in the golden hour, back straight, bare feet resting on the railing. The headline read, "The Deed and the Distance, One Woman's Quiet Power Play." The write-up was honest, nothing flowery. No self-pity. It traced her path from silence to ownership, the estrangement with her daughter, the reclaimed sense of place, how she'd stopped waiting for apology and instead built permanence. The photo was her favorite. Sunlight hit the corner of her silver hair like a crown she hadn't asked for, but now wore with calm. She stared at it for a long time, then folded the magazine closed and placed it gently on the table next to her tea. The ocean whispered from the dunes across the street, gulls wheeling lazy arcs overhead. A knock on the screen door pulled her back. Adele stood there grinning, copy in hand. "You didn't tell me you were CoverGirl material." Marla opened the door. "Wasn't the cover, just page 14. "You made page 14 feel like a damn Pulitzer." Adele stepped in, waving the magazine. "The quote about not needing forgiveness to find peace? That one hit." Marla gave a dry smile. "They edited it. I said I didn't need permission to find peace, but close enough." Adele dropped into a chair and slapped the magazine on her knee. "So, how many copies you want framed?" "None." "Of course not. You're too proud." "No," Marla said, pouring 2 mugs of coffee. "I'm just finally tired of looking at anything framed for someone else's approval." The phone buzzed. She checked it casually. "Riley. Saw the article? You looked badass." Marla smiled without showing teeth. Her reply was simple. "Marla, come see it in person soon. Porch still squeaks. You can help me fix it." A minute passed. Then, "Riley. Bet." That evening, Erica called. "Saw the feature. Beautiful piece." Marla chuckled. "Didn't know lawyers read lifestyle fluff." "Clients read headlines. That means I read everything." Erica paused. "But I'm also calling with my professional hat on. You might want to catalog everything, digitally and physically. The article's going to stir her." "Brooke?" Marla asked, already knowing. "Visibility changes power. If she thinks this made you stronger, and it did, she'll interpret that as distance. And people chase what distances itself from them." "She's not chasing," Marla said flatly. "She's circling. Same behavior, different strategy. Just be ready." By morning, Jake had emailed to say 3 buyers had asked if her duplex was available. "You might be sitting on a gold mine," he wrote. Marla wrote back, "Not for sale. But I need a valuation for the trust file." Jake replied within minutes, "Copy. I'll handle it." Later that afternoon, she sat with her feet up, same chair from the magazine photo, rereading the article. She wasn't looking at her own image this time, just reading the words aloud, slowly, listening to how they sounded in her own house. The doorbell rang. Marla frowned. No one rang the doorbell here. Not Adele, not the mailman, not Eli, the property manager. They knocked, they called, they respected space. She rose, set the mug down, and walked to the door. Through the frosted glass, she saw the shape first, tall, stiff, familiar. Then the handle of a rolling suitcase, glossy black, expensive, unscuffed. Her stomach didn't drop. Her hands didn't shake. There was no anticipation, just confirmation. She opened the door slowly. Brooke stood on the porch, sunglasses on, lips pressed into a polite expression that tried to pass for remorse. In one hand, her phone. In the other, the handle of the suitcase. The suitcase didn't budge. Neither did Marla. Brooke adjusted her grip on the handle, cleared her throat like she was about to deliver a press statement. "I'm not here to fight," she said. I need a break. Thought maybe I could stay a few days." Reset her voice, normally sharp and polished, had a practiced softness to it, like a child impersonating remorse. The sunglasses stayed on. Marla could still see herself reflected in the lenses, small and steady. "I brought my own groceries," Brooke added. "I figured you'd appreciate that." Marla opened the door no farther than it already was. A breeze pushed against her calves and fluttered the edge of her shirt. She didn't respond. Not right away. From inside, the faint sound of Adele's radio filtered through the window, an old Ella Fitzgerald song, sweet and slow like summer syrup. Marla tilted her head. "The guest unit's no longer open." Brooke blinked, caught off guard. I thought you weren't renting it yet." "I'm not. It's unavailable." "For how long?" "Indefinitely." There was a pause, long enough to hear the faint scrape of sand shifting along the porch boards under Brooke's shoes. "Mom?" Brooke tried again, lowering her voice. "I'm trying here. I came to make peace." Marla's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the door. Her voice didn't rise. "You didn't come to make peace. You came to recover territory." Brooke's mouth opened, but no words came. The weight of the suitcase handle shifted again, a nervous tick disguised as poise. "I know what this is," Marla said. "This is a test, to see if the door still opens when it's convenient for you." Brooke's posture stiffened. "You really won't even let me in?" Marla's eyes never left her. "You said I was dead to you. You can't unkill someone when it suits you." The words landed without anger, without drama. They simply were, solid and undeniable as the key Brooke once threw back metaphorically, now desperately trying to reclaim. Brooke's expression faltered. She looked past Marla into the house, at the muted light, the clean floors, the lived-in grace of a home that didn't miss her. "I thought," Brooke said, almost whispering, "we could try again." Marla exhaled slowly. "Try a hotel. They'll have room." "I don't." Brooke's lip curled slightly, not quite a sneer, more a twitch of disbelief. She pulled her sunglasses off at last, and the eyes behind them were tired. Not from travel, from exposure, from losing. Marla gave her a final look, not cruel, not triumphant, just complete. Then she began to close the door. Not fast, not with a slam, just slow enough that Brooke had time to understand the weight of it. The latch clicked into place like punctuation. Inside, the house exhaled with her. Quiet, cool, whole. Marla walked to the kitchen, set the kettle on for tea. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up and smiled at the name on the screen. "Marla. Want to come help me paint the porch this weekend?" She hit send. Outside, Brooke stood frozen on the porch, suitcase in hand, watching a door that no longer belonged to her in any sense that mattered. Next day, Riley showed up with a bucket of mint green paint, 2 brushes, and a Bluetooth speaker tucked under her arm. She didn't knock. She just smiled through the screen door and said, "Let's make it brighter." Marla opened it with a grin already forming. "You read my mind." They laid out the drop cloths on the porch as the morning light warmed the planks beneath their feet. The air smelled faintly of salt and sun-warmed wood. Gull cries echoed from somewhere near the dunes. Riley's speaker played a low, bluesy playlist that pulsed like a steady heartbeat under their conversation. For a while there were only soft strokes of paintbrushes against wood, the kind of rhythm that lets 2 people be together without talking too much. Marla painted the railing with smooth, practiced motions. Riley followed behind her, focused, a dot of green on her cheek. "So," Riley said between strokes, "how long do you think this porch will last?" Marla squinted at the far end of the railing. "Longer than most promises, less than a legacy." Riley looked up at her. "This place feels like both." Marla smiled, dipping her brush again. "It should." When the sun reached its highest point, they took a break and walked barefoot to the custard shack 2 blocks away. Riley ordered chocolate swirl, Marla lemon raspberry. They sat on the boardwalk bench and let the custard melt just slightly before eating, because that's how it tasted best. "I didn't know you liked lemon anything," Riley said. "I didn't either, until I stopped letting other people order for me." Back home, they finished the last of the trim before the light shifted golden. Adele wandered over in the late afternoon, holding up her phone. "You two mind if I snap one? You're glowing like porch angels." Marla laughed. "Only if you promise not to filter us." "God, no," Adele said. "This light doesn't need a filter." They posed side by side, hands on hips, paint on their arms. Click. Later, after dinner and warm showers, Riley stood by the screen door with her backpack slung over one shoulder. "Thanks for the weekend," she said, voice low. "For the porch, for the lemon custard, for everything." Marla reached over and gently adjusted a strand of damp hair from Riley's temple. "It's not just a weekend, sweetheart. It's a start." Riley leaned in, hugged her tighter than she had all spring. Then she was gone, her car a slow silhouette down the beach road. Marla closed the door, walked into the quiet house, and found the note on her desk. "This place feels like love." Signed in neat looping letters, Riley. The ink caught the light. Marla sat for a moment, holding it between her palms like something warm. Then she rose. From the file cabinet she pulled the last set of documents, the ones Erica had prepared weeks ago. Beneficiary confirmations, living will, property title revisions, all finalized, all sealed. She tucked Riley's note into the folder, just behind the title deed, like it belonged there. Outside, Adele was watering her hydrangeas. Marla stepped onto the porch, paint now dry beneath her feet, and called out, "Got a sec?" Adele looked up, watering can still in hand. "Always." Marla handed her the phone. "You took the best photo today. Let's post it." Together they looked at the screen, 2 women on a porch, fresh paint shining, smiles steady and real. Adele clicked the upload button, caption, "Home." That night, the stars over the Outer Banks blinked sharp and clear. The breeze carried no heaviness, no echoes, just the sound of salt and waves and the porch creaking gently beneath its new skin. Marla sipped her tea, leaned back and closed her eyes, not because she was tired, but because there was finally nothing left to brace against.